Okay, hey everybody out there. It looks like a lot of you guys are getting on here. We're having a bunch of people pouring in. One thing you can do to help me out for you people that are coming in saying, yes, I can see the screen, if you can say, yes, I can hear you, that would be great too, just to make sure. So all of you that are out there, just say, yes, I can hear you in the chat. And that way I'll know that you can hear me and see the screen. So just say, yes, I can hear you. Then I know we'll be okay. So I just want to make sure, okay, yeah, I can hear you. Just want to make sure that everybody can hear me. Looks like that's good. Okay, so we're going to get started here in just about a minute. We got a ton of people still pouring in here. I want to make sure that we're good to go, and we will get started. This one is going to be about 40 minutes because I want to first off, wish everybody a very happy Mother's Day. Up here, I know you guys spent some of your special time, family time, coming away to listen to the webinar, and I appreciate that very much. So we're not going to get into hopefully a full hour. And as we go forward, we're still working out a little bit of technical difficulties with this particular webinar jam site, but we're going to have a lot of that worked out over the next couple weeks so that we get things where we want it to be. But as far as like I'm learning about the sizes of what I should put for slides and things so it's easily readable for all of you guys. So if there are some things that are a little bit difficult to read, I apologize ahead of time. This will be recorded, and you will have the replay of that. And then I've also got just a really special offer for you at the end of this webinar too. That is kind of a great little cheat sheet thing that has a lot more information about what we're going to be covering today, which is how to build likability and trust. So in about 1 minute, we'll get started. I'm glad you guys all jumped on with me here, and we'll get moving. So hold on for that. Okay, so we're going to get moving here. Get this webinar started. For some of you said, there's one person that said there's a difficult echo. You may have two web browsers open, or you may have something going on with your audio that you're going to have to fix on your end. Everybody else is saying sounds great. You can see everything. So we're going to jump in and move ahead here and talk about how to build likability and trust. So as always with every week, now one thing I wanted to go through is we're going to do announcements to start. Then we'll go into the DiSC profile, DISC, about how to build likability and trust, and using the 4 predominant ego filters. We'll talk a little bit about that. In the history of the DiSC model, I've used it for about 25 years, started way back when in the corporate world, but we'll get into that. I do want to let you know, guys, thank you for registering. Every week I'll be sending out a notice to you, but you do need to register for each week in the webinar. It's just the way this webinar jam system is set up. It doesn't automatically keep you on the list every single week. So as we do this going forward, you'll get the notice. Either look for it on Facebook, share it out on Facebook. That'll either be in, and you can go over and like my page. It's if you want to look it up on Facebook, it's Croc Brain Selling. So it's all 3 words, Croc Brain Selling. I do tips up there. You can also like the page. There will be announcements on future webinars, what we're doing. And so that will be there, and then we're going to so go ahead and register for those things. Then we're going to then as we go forward, I'll be announcing kind of what we're talking about week after week, so you can learn as we go. Okay, so let's move ahead, and then after we do the weekly information, there'll be a closing and offerings, and then you guys can go back to enjoying your family time with Mother's Day and things like that. So today we're talking about building trust and likability. A lot of you have heard of the term probably rapport. And really, rapport is nothing more than, well, how do you build trust and likability with people that you don't know and that don't know you? And you know, you've heard the old adage, guys. Here's the thing. The saying is, well, you know, people will do business with people that they like, know, and trust, right? We all know that statement, and it does work. I mean, think about it. Have you ever, maybe you have, but more often than not, you have not bought something from someone that you didn't like? I mean, have you ever been to buying a car, and you went to a dealership and the person was just a really pushy salesperson, and it's just turned you off totally, and it's like, no, I'm not going to buy the car here. So we all do that, and what that really does is it's raising the crock brain sales filter, and so it makes you skeptical, mistrustful, and things like that. So today we're going to talk about, well, how do you build that trust and likability with people? You do that by becoming a chameleon. In other words, we're going to talk about each person has a predominant personality type, and then you speak to that predominant ego filter with that personality type, and then you go from there. And that's really what builds trust and likability, because people will do business with people that are like them, or that have similar interests, or have similar understandings or belief systems. Okay, so you know, basically that's how we build the likability and trust. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about this history of DiSC, D-I-S-C, and really what is this? Well, it's been around a long time. Actually, it was developed by Dr. Williamson back in the 1920s. Dr. Williamson was a professor at Columbia University. And I know you guys have been out in the work world in different places. There's lots of different tests. There's Myers-Briggs. There's a 16 color. There's a personality colors. There's a 16 personality types. There's a lot of them out there. I like the DiSC model because it's simple to remember. It has the 4 predominant personality types. It's been tested for many, many years, and a lot of people have used it, like myself, not only in how to spot a predominant personality type in prospecting and sales, but also how to use it with your team members. And I encourage you to do that, because if you can work with each team member that's on your team that's a business builder, knowing what their predominant personality type is, you're going to get along much better. They're going to view you and take the information in a lot more receptively as a leader, that kind of thing. So that's really the history of DiSC. I've used it both as an executive in the corporate world, in my businesses, and now also in sales. If you want, there is a free personality profile test. Basically, you can go to discpersonalitytesting.com and then forward free DiSC test there, okay? And that will give you, you can take the personality test yourself. I highly advise it. You have some homework at the end of this where you can have your team members take it as well. And then I'm going to give you ways, as you learn about this, how to spot the predominant personality type in a prospect, okay? One thing before we get started, too, I just want to give a shout out. Lynette, are you on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're good.
Great.
Okay, good. So we got Lynette. Lynette is one of our moderators. We're going to have Dan Toohey on as well. We're still working through some computer issues with Dan. But guys, I want to share with you, and Dan will be on at a future time, at some point in time in the future, talking about basically you know, what has happened for him. He basically went into the crock brain selling system and really used the DiSC personality model with the 4 personality types, and then some of the conversation starters and things. And I'll give you, it's unfortunate that he can't talk with you today, but he'll be on, and we'll go through an interview process with him in the future. But over the last 6 weeks, since about the middle of March, maybe 6 or 8 weeks, Dan has picked up 193 prospects. using this over 2 or 3 different fairs. So they gave him some prospecting methods that you are also learning in the croc-specting part of the crocodile brain selling system. So between that and the DiSC model, he has 193 prospects in his pipeline that he's still trying to catch up with all of them. He's done 3 direct sales himself using this, 3 indirect sales. He's picked up 2 business builders, and his business has basically exploded. So this stuff, it works pretty well. I don't, Lynette, have you used any of this in some of the your conversations with people?
I have. I've used the not the DiSC system, but I've been using the business builders pickup lines that you've given us, and I've had some very good results. Very good results.
Good. Okay, so it's a combination of things, and guys, that's what, you know, for all of you that are in the crocodile brain selling system, great. This is a compliment. For those that aren't, you might want to consider it. You can go to crocbrain.com/charter and go ahead and pick that up. But you can pick 1 or 2 things. Like Lynette's talking about the business builder, you know, the questions to ask. Dan went over and picked the basically the personality profile things, and both are having some really good success. So we're going to move on with this now. You've had enough time to write that link down. It's free of charge to take that profile test, and it's a lot of fun. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about here is understanding the 4 primary personality ego filters. Now I'm going to talk about ego in the sense, you know, you probably heard of the guy Sigmund Freud, and there's been others down through the history that they've talked about. There's the, you know, the ego, the superego, the id, those kinds of things. But what they found out is there's primarily 4 primary personality ego filter types. There's one that deals with significance, and that really is wanting to do something different, leave a legacy, make a mark. The ego, you know, is just a general basic sense, guys, is your ego is developed as you're a small child. As you start to form language and you start to realize that you have body parts and things like that, and you are being raised by you know, your parents or whoever raised you, you start developing a set of core beliefs, and these core beliefs is what really develops both your personality and your ego. And then in that there are four of these predominant filter types that you go through. But that's really what ego is. It's really a foundation of core belief systems that you develop as you realize that you are a significant and independent entity as a human being when you're small. All right. So the first filter is significance. So that's doing something different, leaving a mark, being a leader, making a legacy. There's appreciation, recognition, compliments, things like that. That's another ego filter. There's one of consistency, and this is consistency of familiarity and things that are consistent with your belief systems. And then the other fourth and final ego filter is one of connection. So in other words, we all want to belong, and a lot of that is partly in how we grow up in social systems. I mean, you could say, well, you know, whether you believe or don't believe in evolution, it really doesn't matter. I mean, if you believe in evolution, you can talk about, well, we had to stay in groups because that was a survival mechanism back in, you know, cave person days. If you don't believe in evolution, it's really more of a social construct. So we like to be in groups, we like to be in societies. We know that to be true because if you've ever done a cross-country trip in the United States of America, we have all kinds of vast amount of land, yet we live in these things called cities and clump ourselves together. So we like to have that connection, and that's another ego filter. So there's significance, appreciation, connection, and consistency. Those are the 4 ego filter types, and I'm going to talk to them as they relate to the DiSC system. Now, this is the DiSC. This is what Dr. Williamson developed. There's 4 types, and I'm going to go over each type. D. And here's what happens when you take the test, or anybody takes the test. You are going to be, one of them is going to be your predominant personality type. You're either going to be a high D, high I, high S, or high C, and then you'll have components of other ones, okay? But you will have a predominant one. That's the one that you typically lead with, that you live in that personality type most of the time, all right? So we'll talk about each of these. The high D is a driver, okay? The driver is someone, their behaviors are They want to be innovators, and they think outside the box, and they're direct and decisive, and they say, hey, let's get to the bottom line. We got to make a decision. They're risk takers, okay? Those are the behaviors, how you recognize a high D. And I'm going to get into occupations and things like that. The predominant ego filter that ties with a high D is one of significance. In other words, they want to leave a legacy, a mark. I mean, when we show occupation types, business owners, CEOs, a lot of those people are high Ds. They like to lead. They like to compete. They like to think outside the box. They like to innovate, that kind of thing. That is a high D type. They're very driven, okay? Then you go over to the high Is. High Is are influencers. They like to be the life of the party. They like to have fun. They're optimistic. They're impulsive. They want to. If you're a kind of person that you like to go out in the street corner and meet everybody, or you go into a bar or a restaurant and you introduce yourself, because I do this all the time, I know, because I'm a high I, but you go in and you talk to everybody, you introduce yourself to the bartender or the server, and you strike up conversations wherever you go. That's what a high I does. They like to talk to a lot of people. They place an emphasis on that interaction, the social interaction, the life of the party, the attention. Their predominant filter is one of appreciation. So they like to be at the center of attention. They like to have a lot of people around them. They will typically, you'll know a high I if you go into a party and you or someone you recognize goes, you know, how many people can I meet in this room, shake their hand and talk to them? That's a high I, okay? Now, the opposite of a high I is a high S. A high S is steady and predictable. I call them amiables. High S's, they're good listeners, they're loyal, they're team players, but they like long-term relationships. They're great family people. They typically are the ones that will stay married for 70 years because high S's, they place a huge value in that connection with the intimate long-term relationships. They like to have a few friends. Like, if you think about it this way, high S's will have, you know, maybe 100 friends on Facebook. High I's will have 5,000. Okay, there's a difference. When a high S goes to a party, they want to go look for the people that they know, throw their arms around them, sit down and have a nice, long, intimate chat. That's a high S, okay? A good example of an occupation, and I'll get into that a little bit, is a teacher. Teachers are high S's. They like to have good connections with their students and really develop relationships over a period of a year, okay? So coaches and teachers are high S's. High S's really don't like a lot of confrontation, where high I's, they like to negotiate. They don't mind confrontation. You know, they like to think on their feet and do that kind of stuff. Then you have the high C's, okay? So high C's are conscientious, they're careful. I call them analytics. You'll know high C is engineer, scientist. They're high C's. Knowledge is high value with a high C. They like to know things, and they like to let people know that they know things. In fact, a really high C, you may have some of your friends, if you have a really high C that you know, you may think of them as a know-it-all because they really value what they know, and they want to let other people know that, and that's how they communicate with what they know. A high C will go to a party, they'll sit somewhere off to the side, and they'll, as a vantage point, and they'll watch other people. They're very introspective, okay? They're careful, they're systematic, they like processes, policies, and procedures. They like to stay in the box. Think about it. Scientists work from a hypothesis to go to an unknown. So they always work, and that's why their ego filter, the predominant filter, is consistency, because they want to have familiarity with what they know to go from known to unknown. So that's the 4 filters here. Now we're going to get into each of these in a little bit of more detail and talk about them again so that you really get this down, okay? So high D's are drivers, okay? They have the significance filter. They want to be connected with innovation that challenges the status quo. They don't follow the herd. They're contrarians. They like to be innovators. It's all about being a maverick with a high D and standing out from the crowd. So you can see down here the occupation examples. CEOs, executives, business owners, and a lot of professional athletes are high Ds, okay? Because they're doing their own thing, and they want to be the best they can be. They love to lead and compete, okay? So that's a high D. A high I, like I said, they're influencers. They have the appreciation filter. They will talk to everybody. They like attention, and it's more about the number of people they get to meet than the long-term connections they make, okay? So for them, it's about conversation, attention, and being appreciated. High Is love to be complimented, okay? They absolutely love it, and they eat it up, okay? And their occupation examples are, you got salespeople, event planners, actors, musicians, anyone that's the life of a party, that enjoys fun, that wants to be on stage, that loves to be out and about and mixing it up with a lot of people is typically a high I. High S's, like I said, they're the amiables. They're very loyal. They look for long-term friendships and connection, and a high S is very family-oriented, both with their family, their significant other, and their friends. In other words, they treat their friends like family. So if you're a high S or you know a high S, they got your back, and they'll go the extra mile or to the ends of the earth for you, because they're very family-oriented. It's about that connection, okay? And so they want to make those long-term connections. Occupation examples, if you spot people and you ask them what they do for a living, typically teachers, coaches, and counselors, therapists. Those guys are all high S's typically, okay? Not all of them, but typically they are, because they gravitate to those kinds of occupations because they're looking for that long-term connection, that ability to form those bonds, okay? And then you have the high C's, like I said, they're all about the consistency filter. A high C is very careful and accurate. I mean, think about the nerdy engineer. That is the most extreme example, you know, where they're doing their calculations with their pocket protector and all that kind of stuff. They pride themselves on their knowledge. It's all about letting others know the knowledge they have acquired. Knowledge is their currency. That's what they value. And we're going to talk about how you talk to these people, because if you're a high D and you meet a high C, you can't talk fast. You can't, you can't go, let's make a decision. It's called pacing. So if you're talking to high S's and high C's, think about it like this, guys. If you're jogging, right, and you're jogging with a friend, and if you run too fast while you're talking and you're having a conversation, and let's say you jog a lot faster than your friend, what's going to happen? Pretty soon, you're going to jog way ahead of your friend. Your friend can't hear you anymore. Vice versa is, and that's how you have to be careful, is if you're a D or an I, you like to talk fast, you like to emote, you like to get to the bottom line, let's make a decision. S's and C's, they like to take their time. They talk softer, they talk slower. So, here's the thing. So let's say you're jogging and you jog way too slow, well, what's going to happen? The person you're jogging with is going to be way out ahead of you, and they can't hear you. So this is called pacing. So if you're a high D or high I and you meet a high S or high C, slow down. Talk softer. Give them time. Okay, if you're a D and you're talking to a C, you got to give them a ton of information. I'm just working with a high C right now, guys, and guess what? He wanted to read the whole distributor manual. I had another lady who read the whole policy manual before she bought the machine. And she asked me like 50 questions on it. That is a classic high C, okay? So if you're a high S or a high C, you have to learn how to emote more to speed up your inflection. You need to speed up the way you talk if you're talking to a D or an I, because you're going to bore them to death. Especially D's, they're going to be looking at their watch going, come on, let's get on with it. Let's make a decision, okay? So again, this is about chameleoning or being like them. In other words, you want to live where they live in their personality, okay? So to go back on knowledge is currency, occupation examples, engineers, scientists, doctors, and dentists. A lot of high C's there, okay? Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call the Z sales cycle for building trust. What happens now that you know the predominant personality type and the associated ego filter with each of those, every personality type goes through what's called a Z. In other words, if they're a high D, when they're going through a purchase or buying decision, you want to talk to first significance, and then they're going to go over to I, talk to appreciation, then they're going to go over to S, talk connection, then they're going to go to C, talk consistency, okay? But you have to talk about it in terms of what they value in their predominant personality type. So every one of these goes through a Z sales cycle. If I was a high I would go from I'd go from appreciation to significance to consistency to connection. Okay, so we're going to go through each of these now and talk about each Z cycle in the buying process for a predominant personality type. So we'll start with the high D. Okay, so if their predominant personality type is a high D, okay, the first thing you want to do is you want to talk to them when you're speaking to them as far as prospecting. Talk about, look, you know what, this particular, like King and Water, particular product or business opportunity, this is innovative, new technology. It's a megatrend. It's not the status quo. This is something you can get in on and really grow and lead wherever you are in the world, because I know we have people from all over the world on this webinar. Okay, that's how you'd initially speak to a high D. Then you're going to speak to them being appreciated. Okay, so appreciation they go over to the I area, but you don't just talk about. They don't necessarily care about being the center of attention like a high I. They want to be appreciated as leaders. So you could talk to them about, and not only is this a new trend and it's not the status quo, but you can be, people can look up to you and you can be appreciated as leading a new trend with your team. Okay, that's how you would speak to a high D in the appreciation filter. Then moving over to the connection filter down in S, you would speak to the connection to problem solving and team growth. High Ds don't necessarily care as much about making long-term friendships, but they like the connection to problem solving, solving puzzles, and to team growth, leading the teams on to victory. Okay, that's what a high D does. That's how they relate to connection. Okay, then they're going to finish up at consistency. So you're going to speak to directing people with processes and systems to get results. High D's, bottom line, get results. That's what they want. That's why they make decisions and move ahead. So when you speak to them in a consistency fashion, you talk to them about directing people and processes, but in reference to getting results. Okay, so that's the high D the Z cycle that a high D goes through. Now conversely, a high I, they're going to go through a reverse cycle from a high D. So first you're going to speak to that appreciation. You're going to say, hey, you know what? You're going to get to speak to a lot of people. Can you imagine the number of people that you're going to be able to talk to about this opportunity and how fun that's going to be for you? They love that. Okay, that's what a high I lives for. Then you're going to move over to significance, and because they like to inspire, they're typically charismatic, they're optimistic, so you're going to talk to them about speaking to motivating others to achieve. Think about all the people on your team you bring in that you can inspire and you can motivate and you can help influence. That's how a high I looks at significance. Then they're going to move over to consistency, and you're going to talk to them about speaking to them about being able to negotiate conflicts. So if there's disagreements in the team or people are seeing things a different way, a high I loves that because they can go ahead and negotiate the conflict between a team or two people or a group of people to some kind of a optimistic outcome, and they really enjoy doing that. And then as they go over to connection, you can speak to having hundreds or thousands of connections to talk to. They're the 5,000 person person on Facebook. So you want to speak to them as far as this is how you get the access to speak to a lot of people. You can make connections with a whole bunch of people. They love that. A high S Z cycle, that's opposite of a high I. If you notice, it goes backwards from a high I. You want to speak to first that connection about, when you get a chance to do this business, you're going to have a chance to really work one-on-one. Okay, one-on-one is key to nurturing and coaching people. They love that. Okay, then as they move over to consistency, you want to speak to developing a predictable routine in approaching people. Okay, and how that predictability is really, really good, so that they can go ahead and they have that ability to have that routine. Then you're going to go into significance, and you're going to speak to the long-lasting, significant relationships that basically they have, and what they can develop in long-lasting relationships. And then lastly, you're going to be speaking to the appreciation. This is really being appreciated for them being a helpful team player. They love to be team players. They love to be able to help out and to nurture and help people grow. Okay? Then there's the high C, the analytics, right? Their Z sales cycle is, or purchase and buying decision, is opposite of a D, right? So they go backwards. So first is consistency. You want to speak to them about acquiring that and sharing that new knowledge that they gave. Remember, I said knowledge is currency to them. Then they're going to move over to connection. So you want to speak to connecting with others like them who love to learn. So you can say, you're going to meet a lot of people in this business. They love the technical aspects. They love to learn. They love to know about all the different properties of the water, or the different benefits and features and technical aspects of this particular product or service. Okay. Then they're going to go up to appreciation. You want to speak to them of being appreciated for what they know. Remember, they're not concerned about getting complimented or being the center of attention like a high I. They love to be appreciated for what they know, because knowledge is currency. And then the last is you want to speak to making a difference so they can their significance is their ability to pass on their knowledge and leave a legacy. Okay, so a high C, especially a scientist or engineer, they like to acquire patents. They like to pass on their knowledge in a public way. That's really how they leave their legacy. Okay, now where can you use this, guys, as we wrap up this webinar? Well, you can use it, number one, prospecting. If you can spot a high D, a high I, a high S, or a high C by what you learned here and going through the replay on this, when you're talking to people that you don't know, if you spot them as a high D by asking them what do they do for a living, if they're sharply dressed, if they emote, talk fast, if they say, hey, let's get to the bottom line on this. I mean, I told a story one time about one lady that I recruited into my business, I thought she was a high C. So I started going through all of this, facts and technical figures and all that kind of stuff, and she interrupted me, and she said, hey, Peter, she goes, I don't really care about all this stuff you're telling me. Would you get to the bottom line? What kind of money can I make in this? So I went, oops, she's a high D. So I went back and I went right to the bottom line and said, here's the comp plan, here's what you can make. She goes, great. The next day, she said, I'm buying a machine. She never tried the water. She just jumped in based on that. That is a classic high D. So if you know what they are and you speak to that and you change the way you are communicating with them so that you are like them, you are building that likability and trust. You can also use this with your team members. This is why I encourage you to have all your team members take this free personality profile test, so you know, okay, if they're a high D, they're going to want to lead. They're going to want to have some leadership role. They want to compete. They want to do something of significance in your team. If they're a high C, they want to learn all the knowledge there is and be that expert go-to guy or go-to girl. That's their thing. Okay. If they're a high S, then you want to work with them about developing individual relationships with people that they bring in. It's not about bringing in the masses and shotgun effect like a high I, where they leave a flaming trail behind them. That's really a classical high I. They're not really their attention to detail and details. They just don't get that, whereas high S's do. Okay, so knowing what your team members are and being able to be like them and speak to their strengths. Okay, I don't know if you ever read the book called Strengths Finders. I really agree with that philosophy. Instead of looking at people's weaknesses to correct those, forget the weaknesses. Work off their strengths and build from those. I mean, that's really where you can help a team rapidly grow, okay? And then, guys, you could use this in your own personal relationships. If you know what your significant other, husband, wife, or significant other is, if you know what your kids are, and you speak to them from their personality type and their ego filters, watch what happens. They're going to be like, wow, mom or dad gets me. Or my brother or sister gets me. Okay, that's all about, this can go across all aspects of your life. Okay, now for any kind of added juice, especially with prospecting, if you connect, and I talk about this, guys, remember, you get this in the Crocodile Brain Selling System. I talk about the, in the 10-minute sort call, you really, and in the brain science piece of the reward circuit and things like that. And there's a cheat sheet here at the end that you can get if you'd like. It's really inexpensive. But I talk about that too, is you really want to find out what they treasure to activate that limbic system's reward circuit as you're speaking to the personality type, because you're getting a double benefit out of that. Not only are you building that trust and rapport, but by talking to and them telling you what they treasure, you're activating the reward circuit in the limbic system and dumping that dopamine in the brain. And that really is, that's that euphoric elixir that you're looking for during that buying brain process, okay? So here's what I want you to do as we wrap this up. And again, you can go back and listen to the replay on this, and I've got a really cool cheat sheet here for you in just a second I'm going to explain. But your homework for this week, and as we go forward, again, we're going to add some Q&A. I didn't do it today because it was Mother's Day, and I don't want to keep you on the webinar a long time. I wanted to give you something you could use this week. I have heard from several people. Now, here's the thing. If you guys would like, I would love it if you go over to Facebook and join my page. Look it up in the search box. It's Croc Brain Selling, 3 words. Like the page. You could put your comments up there about, hey, I used the conversation starters this last week. This is what it did for me. Or, Peter, I got this question, and leave it in a in a post up there, and I'll answer those. If you're in the Crocodile Brain Selling System, put the questions in there. I look at it every day. I'll answer the questions in there. If you want to send me a private email, maybe you're a little nervous or you're unsure or you're a little embarrassed about putting stuff up there, just send me an email at crocbrain@gmail.com, and I'll work with you there. But for this week, what I want you to do is I want you to take the DiSC personality test, okay? So the link was up there. I gave that to you. And then what I want you to do is I want you to have your team take the test too. So for the people that were not on this, share this webinar with the team. Also, give them the link. You guys can do this. For all of you guys, there's probably a lot of you out there that are listening in groups. So go online after this if you're having a little potluck or getting together, and take your take your test. It's a 12-question test. You can do it in all of about 2 or 3 minutes. It's really kind of cool, and it will teach you about not only about yourself and your predominant personality, but also your team members. So have your team members take the test. The next thing is identify 3 people. Try to identify 3 people's dominant personality this week, and say something related to, if they're a high D, talk significance. If they're a high I, talk appreciation. If they're a high S, talk connection. If they're a high C, talk consistency and familiarity. Okay. And watch what happens, okay? If you talk to that person's ego filter and you've identified their personality, you're going to build that trust and likability. If you are way off, like I gave you the example of that lady, they're going to tell you. They're going to go, will you get to if they're a high T and you're thinking they're a high C, or if they're a high S and you think they're a high I, they'll tell you. Or they'll get very uncomfortable because you missed it. You were 90 degrees off, okay? So that's what I want you to do this week. So to learn more, what I've done, guys, is I've created a DiSC personality, a cheat sheet for you. It's a quick reference guide. It's on practical tips and scripts to build trust and duplicate. And if you look over on the right-hand side here, you're going to see there's what's called a pop-in. If you see that there's an offer for that right there. We're going to talk about this particular sheet right now. Here's in this cheat sheet, it's $7, so it's not expensive. It took me some time to put together, so that's why I'm charging for it. But the thing about it is, guys, here's what you're going to learn in the cheat sheet. It's a report that's going to give you key tips on how to spot a high D, a high I, a high S, or high C. Okay, it'll give you not only what are the weaknesses of each of these personalities. So not only are you going to be able to spot them and know what to say, but if they're a team member, you're going to know, first of all, what are their weaknesses. What you're going to learn what their greatest fear is, because each of these personality types, they have a greatest fear. Like, for example, a high D, they have a fear of being taken advantage of. And I talk about, well, how do you overcome that fear when you're working with a high D? You're going to also learn how to steer a conversation knowing which personality type they are, because you know how to spot which one they are by what they say, what they do, their body language. I talk about that all in the key tips area. You're going to get common occupation matches. I give you a whole bunch for each particular predominant personality type, so you'll know, oh, well, this person is a chiropractor, this is where they fit, or this person is a psychiatrist, or this person is a therapist, or this person is an attorney, or this person's this. You're going to know kind of more commonly these different occupation types match up with these different personality types. You're going to learn how to chameleon to each of the personality types to be liked. In other words, how do you talk, your pacing, what you say, what you do, so that they feel like, wow, this person's just like me. You're going to find out what they treasure. I talk about how to really ask the right questions so you know what they treasure, and they tell you that, because then you know you're going to learn how to speak to the buying brain in this section. You're also going to learn how to build teams and duplicate using the DiSC personality and the DiSC personality cheat sheet. So the bottom line is, for all you high Ds out there, you're going to learn how to build, trust, and duplicate with this. The thing is, on this personality cheat sheet, it's $7. There's a buy now button. You can go over and click on that to get instant access. It'll take you right to an order form. I made it inexpensive so you guys can get the complete report. It's a complement both to this webinar, this free webinar, but it's also a complement to what you're learning in a lot more detail in the Croc-Brain selling system, so you have that as well. So go ahead and go over and click on the buy now button. With that,
Peter,
guys,
may I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
Two things. Is that if you're a part of the Croc-Brain system, is that included, or is this an extra?
This is an extra because I
Okay.
went into an additional detail as far as giving specific scripts and key tips and things like that.
Okay.
There's
Will
a
it be
good
available
amount.
on the replay?
Yeah, it's available on the replay as well on the cheat sheet itself.
Okay. Also, Peter will be on the Tuesday morning Difference Makers call, talking about the Croc-Brain. If you had just an inkling tonight you'd want to learn more, he's with us every second and fourth Tuesday, and you can get details on that from the Waterworks site. That's the-water-works.com. Scroll down the main page and you'll find a picture of Maxwell Smart with the phone numbers and the local numbers and access numbers. So we'd love to have you join us, 9 o'clock Eastern Time.
And that's great. And by the way, guys, this week, just as long as we're talking about announcements, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to be talking about social media viral prospecting using Facebook and LinkedIn. Exactly how to do that is one of the prospecting techniques so you can really dramatically build your business. I know Bill Mabry's on here. Bill's in my weekly pod. He's been blowing it up out there this last year. I think he had like 44 sales from Facebook. I've been using my system, and I'm going to give you here's what I do and the back-end service and things like that. But basically, I've got 29 prospects in the last, like, I think 15 days. 2 people I'm sampling water with from that messaged me, and 1 sale in the works already. So we're going to go over that on Tuesday, so I'm glad you brought that up, Lynette. We'll cover that. Make sure, guys, before we wrap it up here this week, I'll send you out another one. We'll be doing another one of these this next Sunday. We'll have the full-blown 45 to 60 minutes with Q&A. Remember, go over to Croc Brain Selling. It's 3 words. Look me up. It's my Facebook page. Like it. You can ask questions there. You can go to crocbrain@gmail.com if you want to ask me a private question. We will be doing Q&A, so do your homework this week so that you can actually go out and prove it to yourself, whether it's conversation starters or using the DiSC profile and the 4 predominant ego filters, and see what happens. And then we'll discuss. We'll have question and answer for 10 or 15 minutes this next time where I can answer Lynette and Dan and I, and hopefully we'll have Dan on. He can talk about his story of what happened. We can hopefully get his computer fixed by then. Can't promise anything, but we'll see what happens. If you want to get yourself the cheat sheet, but guys, I hope you have a really wonderful rest of the evening. I know it's getting a little later on the East Coast. I'm going to take my mom out right now. We're going out to have some dinner for her Mother's Day, and I'm glad you took the time to join us. Yes.
Wish your mother a happy Mother's Day and let her know she can have anything on the McDonald's menu she wants. It's Mother's Day.
All right, I certainly will. All right, well, thanks a lot, everybody, and we will be talking real soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Night.